All right, guys, today we have some big news to talk about coming out of the LEC, and this is not only big news because obviously we're locking in some new players. There are some players that are going to be joining teams, and we're figuring out what players are going to play on which teams in 2025, but also this is big because now the entire LEC offseason is officially finished. We had just 2 openings left. This was going to be the jungle and the support for Rogue, and by the end of this video, you are going to know the entire Rogue roster, and by that, you're going to know the entire LEC offseason as well, so this is extra exciting. So the first story we have to talk about here is, of course, that jungle position for Rogue. Sheep Esports tweeting out, sources, Malrang is returning to Rogue in the LEC. I don't know how you pronounce all these names, but Hambak, Yuji, and Bo were also considered for this position. So some other big names and very, very interesting names in that conversation. But obviously Malrang, a guy who has made a name for himself in the LEC and with Rogue, was on some of those really good Rogue teams a couple of years ago for his aggressive and insane play style and honestly pretty good synergy with guys like Larson and stuff like that, is now returning to the organization. So let's dive into the story because obviously it seems like there was a lot of moving parts here and a lot of other possibilities. Rogue has had a very, very long offseason, a very slow offseason. I'm sure they've considered a ton of different players, could have maybe gone a bunch of different ways. So here we have Malrang has reached an agreement to play for Rogue or whichever organization acquires a team franchise slot in the LEC next year. That's another very, very big thing to kind of keep in mind. This is the same, I believe, with all of the players on the Rogue roster now because again, Rogue is trying to leave the LEC. They're trying to sell that slot. But they're not just trying to sell the slot. I think they're trying to sell like their entire organization, which would be all the players, everything that they have underneath them, all the staff, everything like that. So, but the players they are making agreements with right now, even if they get this sale done within the next couple weeks or whatever, it would just kind of all transfer to the new team. So Malrang, he's with Rogue right now, but if Rogue sells to whoever you want to say, the idea is that Malrang would still be the jungler for that team. Now, obviously, that new team can come in with different plans and change things up. I'm not sure exactly what all the protections and everything are going to be in place, but that's the idea here. After departing from Koi, formerly Rogue, after a disastrous 2023 season, Malrang spent the year with Kaboom Esports in the CB LoL, where he saw middling results despite the region's relative weakness compared to Europe. 4 other notable names were considered for the jungle position. Rogue's first option was Hambak from KT Challengers. However, the South Korean jungler could not wait for an offer and instead signed with OK Brion in the LCK. So obviously this, there's LCK teams that think this guy is a tier 1 talent of jungle, so I'm sure this would have been a big pickup for Rogue, but like we say here, Rogue's delays in the offseason, I'm sure were really, really scary and weird for a lot of players out there, and they couldn't take the risk of Rogue trying to figure this whole thing out or even what Rogue's roster was going to be or whatever the whole time, so I think that is pretty interesting that they could have went a different direction, but yeah, they kind of miss out on this player based on how slow and how kind of disastrous their offseason went. All-time LEC jungler Yankos was another choice, but it did not fit with Rogue's target budget, and I know we've heard some different things about Yankos talking about how kind of salaries have gone down and they need to make it worth people's time and everything, and also he needs to watch out for his streaming career and everything like that too, because that's kind of his post-playing plans. He has since been reported to join former teammate Perks in the NLC under the Rudy Esports banner. The final 2 possibilities were Bo and Yuji. Bo's last performance was in March 2024 with K-Corp, and he's been inactive since then. Meanwhile, Yuji has been touted as the next jungler to be promoted to the LTA North, or the LCS, after a very successful 2024, including winning the NACL Summer Split with Dragon Steel. However, he would not have been able to obtain his visa in time to compete in the LEC next year, and Rogue ultimately decided to move forward with Malrang. So Yuji has had that's really a whole story in and of itself. Yuji has had a very, very, very unfortunate situation this offseason. Like it says here, there was a lot of talk about him being promoted to the LCS, but then it turns out he's not actually a resident of NA, so then he has to try to make it back to Europe, but now obviously he's not able to get his visa in time and just all this stuff that was really, really disastrous. He almost had opportunities in the LCS and LEC, and now to end up in neither of them, that has to be extremely frustrating, but I do hope Yuji will get his tier 1 opportunity sooner rather than later. Definitely thoughts out to him. With Malrang's return to Rogue, the LEC offseason is complete with all 10 teams finalized whether or not they play under the Rogue banner. Malrang will compete alongside obviously we're going to have a little bit of a spoiler here in this article, but we'll talk about the support here in a second. Adam, Larson, Patrick, and Execute. We'll get into who Execute is in a second as well. When Rogue won the LEC trophy in 2022, Malrang was a heart of the roster. His unique ganks, creative style, and undeniable dominance made him a fan favorite. Throughout the year, his opponents insisted that his style was too inefficient to work in the long term and that he would eventually be figured out. Unfortunately, that seemed to come true. So yeah, he kind of burst onto the scene, surprising people, playing different, playing weird, playing crazy. But then obviously that didn't last very long, and it seems like it didn't work out too much in the CB Law as well. But he is obviously returning to Rogue now, so Rogue must believe in him at least to some extent. Doesn't sound like he was even necessarily Rogue's first or second option, but yeah, we'll have to see how this plays out. Like I said, he is at least familiar with Europe, he's familiar with Rogue, and he's familiar with Larson as well. So there is maybe some opportunities for this to go well. After swapping Oduwamne for Sugenda, the reigning LEC champions finished the winter best of one stage in 7th place. The team rallied in the playoffs, though. A respectable 3rd place finish behind Mad and G2. Koi's fans breathed a short-lived sigh of relief. As it turned out, winter's podium finish was the exception to a rule of mediocre results for Koi's debut LEC roster. The team placed 6th in spring and 8th in summer, despite retaining 4 of their players. The 2022 summer LEC champions didn't even qualify for the season finals. Change was inevitable, with Rogue losing the Koi branding for 2024. The beloved Spanish brand instead moved to Mad Lions. Malrang was among the players cut from the team. Apparently, though, his stint in Brazil proved that he has what it takes to return to the LEC. Can the player who earned Rogue their first trophy help them return to glory? Only time will tell. Then this gets us into obviously the support news here. Support Jonghoon. Again, it said Execute previously, but I don't know. We're still kind of unsure if he's going to be going with his name as Jonghoon or Execute or whatever. But yeah, apparently Jonghoon is set to make his return to the LEC as well with Rogue. Again, another guy who we are familiar with. Jonghoon set to join Rogue or their buyer in the LEC in 2025. So again, same type of deal here. After a challenging year in the LCK, Execute, formerly known as Jonghoon, now maybe known as Jonghoon once again, is set to return to the LEC. Per CV Sports sources, the Korean support has reportedly reached an agreement to play for Rogue or whichever organization acquires their franchise slot. Rogue looked at multiple supports for the position, most of whom opted to go elsewhere due to their inability to make offers at the time. The organization first looked to Moham, who is likely headed to the LPL instead. They looked at June, who is also another option, but he is set to follow Noah to Giant X. Another consideration was Ignar, but was ultimately passed up in favor of Execute. It's important to note that this verbal agreement, along with those involving other players, does not depend on Rogue completing their sale. Rogue are aiming to sell the entire organization, not just their LEC slot. So obviously a new name with familiar talent. With this agreement, Execute will return to the pinnacle of EMEA League of Legends, where he impressed fans with his mechanics during his stint with Australis in 2023. He began his career in the Korean circuit, debuting in the Challenger scene in 2020 after winning a promotion tournament at the end of 2019. He spent the entire 2021 season with Brion Challengers, but the team never found success. In 2022 summer, he joined Australis' LEC team. Despite a 9th place finish that split, he was retained for the following year due to his exceptional mechanical skill, which was remarkable even compared to the region's best support. So again, this is now the entire Rogue roster. Obviously on this article, we still don't have the jungler here, but we can go back to that previous one and see here that we do have Adam, Malrang, Larson, Patrick, and Execute, or Jonghoon, whatever we're going to be calling him or whatever he wants to be called or whatever. But yes, this is the Rogue roster for 2025. And like I said, and we've said on Sheep Esports and everything, this does complete the LEC offseason as well. Rogue was the last team we were waiting for. Now that they have a reported final roster, we're going to be able to do a lot more cool things like, power ranking and tier listing all the teams, all the players, all the offseason moves. There's so much stuff I want to do. I'm really, really excited. But now that the LEC offseason is done, I think there's maybe still a couple pieces missing in the LCS. We'll have to finish soon as well. Maybe everything's done. I don't know. The LCS is getting very, very close as well. And then we'll have to start getting ready for that 2025 season. Offseason is always super, super fun. But now that things are wrapping up and winding down, we can start preparing. And obviously it's December now as well. So we're getting really, really close to next season. But yeah, pretty crazy stuff. I'm glad, we did a ton of hard work, craziness. Everyone was working super, super hard this offseason to get all this news out to you guys. So hopefully you have all appreciated it. And of course, just want to mention real quick that for Holy, their Black Week is still going on until tomorrow, December 2nd. This means big discounts, limited edition flavors, merchandise packs, all that good stuff. So definitely go check out that first link in the description below. Use those discount codes SE5 or SE10 to get some Holy today. Great tasting energy drinks that are also healthier than the competition. Hopefully we'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.